Hello, human collective. Welcome to the Upside to Grief. My name is Story, and I am your host. And this week we are welcoming back Nick from SD Sober Living. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to have you back on.
Yeah, likewise.
I am excited to do the segment that we are doing today. Nick chose to do questionable grief decisions, aka QGDs. And for those of you who haven't seen this segment, QGDs are essentially the decisions that we make in the fog of our grief that maybe at the time we didn't really realize that they were questionable. And then now, looking back on them, we're like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have done those things. But at that time, we fully believed that this is what I need
Yep.
right now. And I mean, arguably, it kind of is, because grief is fucked up and you kind of do crazy things.
Whatever
So
gets you through it.
yeah.
Yep.
I'm gonna move this a little bit closer. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So let's just get into it.
All right.
I know you said when we talked about this, you were like, "Yeah, I have those."
Yeah.
So do you want to share some of them, or a big one, or
that rang a bell right away? Yeah. So I've lost people before, of course, right? But losing a partner is like a different experience, right? And you know all about that. But I've lost really close friends and people I even called brothers, and a lot of times to fentanyl overdoses. But it just hits different when it's a partner, right? And so I thought I understood grief, and I had no fucking clue, like no clue at all, right?
Yeah.
None. And so it was July 19th of last year of 2025 when it happened, right? And so pretty much within a month or two, I was like, yeah, I'm good. Like and I have a really positive outlook on the afterlife, right? I'm not necessarily religious, but I definitely don't think that's the end, right? And so just personal beliefs, but I have a really positive outlook on it, and she shared the same spiritual beliefs that I did. And so I was like, man, she's living her best life right now, And so of course I was sad, but I learned a long time ago that I'm usually crying for me, right? Like I'm not really crying for her because, she's somewhere great. Um, and so I thought I was like, yeah, I'm good. I have a great outlook on this. And a month or two later, I was like, maybe I just don't process grief the way a lot of people do. And I thought I was healed. And so pretty quickly, I met a girl, and won't mention her name, but she has some issues, and she's been through similar experiences with grief. And the first thing she said to me was yeah, right after my boyfriend died, I hooked up with someone, and it really helped. And I was like, oh, maybe that's what I need to do, Yeah, that'll totally help. And which it absolutely did not, right? But in the moment, I totally thought it was helping. And when that ended, it was back to being alone, and it was worse than it was prior to that. It was way worse, right? And I thought I had conquered the whole loneliness thing, and then it was oh, for a month or two, I had somebody with me all the time, and then that disappears, and then you go back to being alone again, and it just sucked. It sucked worse than it did. And that was a regrettable decision. And of course, other people judged me, I'm sure, but I judged myself even more, right? I was battling with oh my God, does this mean I wasn't actually in love with her? And I was I'm naturally really self-critical, but I was really beating myself up for it. And I just couldn't understand, right, why I was doing some of the things I was doing. And like I said, I thought I understood grief, and I still don't. I'm understanding it more and more, right? But we're not even at a year yet, and already I've gone through so many phases already, and it's wow. And I imagine it's different for everybody, whether it's a child, a parent, a brother, a sister, a lover. It's different, right?
Yeah, the relationship is
it changes.
It changes it. I mean, if it's your kid, your parent, your partner, friend, sibling, it's all
they're different styles.
It's all
of
different,
grief.
and it depends on what phase of your life you're in.
Yep, that too.
So many things. And then just every single year going forward, I mean, I'm in my year 3 right now, and it's way different than year 2 and year 1. I don't like to compare them. They're just different.
I was going to say not necessarily better or worse, just different, right? And that's what I've learned too. It's none of it's better or worse. It's just different. And I didn't realize the stages that I would experience every one of them. I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'll hit on this stage or that stage, but I didn't know I was gonna, get the full effect here. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't prepared for that at all, and I probably could have done some things to help myself, like some grief counseling, and when it first happened, um, it was, first of all, let me give you a little bit of backstory. It was extremely unexpected, right? So I'm in recovery. My clean date is October 29th of 2019. So
Mm-hmm.
this year it'll be 7 years. And when her and I met, she had about a year, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And when this happened, she had 4.5 years clean, totally clean. And we're both pretty involved. We were pretty involved in recovery and all that. And so it was extremely unexpected. And, you know, when you were asking about like the what ifs,
Yeah.
I won't sidetrack too much, but like basically how it happened is somebody who's in their active addiction, I let him park his truck at my house because he was worried about it being towed. And she knew this person and she knew he was using. And one day after I was gone, I think I was fixing the pool at one of my sober livings or something, she just went out to that truck and found a crumbled up piece of foil and went in the bathroom and tried to take a hit. And I couldn't reach her on the phone. And so I called my mom, who's living with me right now, and I was like, hey, go check on her. Oh, she's in the bathroom. And my mom's almost 70, and she's not from that world. So it didn't resonate with her. Like, this is bizarre. Somebody's been in the bathroom for that long.
Mm-hmm.
And after like an hour went by, I said, hey, what's up? I still haven't heard from her. And she said, oh, the bathroom. She's still in the. I said, no, open the door. Something's not right. And that's what it was. And so, extremely unexpected,
Yeah.
right?
There's probably a lot of what ifs that.
A lot of what ifs, right? Had I not let him park his truck there, had I
And I
locked.
think the what ifs come along with the deaths that are unexpected.
For
You know
sure.
what I mean?
For
Because I
sure.
feel like when somebody's sick and you know it, like you kind of get that portion of time to be like, okay, like what are the things that I want to say? What do I want them to know? What do I need from them? Like all of the little things that as much as you can like close it out or,
Yep.
get that closure, I feel like you get that
Yep.
when it is expected. Like still a totally different beast,
Of course.
right?
Of
And
course.
I haven't experienced that to that degree, like as an adult.
Hmm.
So I can't like 100% speak on that, but just from other people that I've talked with and other people who've come on the podcast who have shared that, like, they were like, there was nothing left unsaid. And like, I will
Yep.
forever be grateful for that.
Yep.
But then when it comes to a situation like yours or mine, it's like,
Yep.
that's it.
Yep. Right. And of course, you can't live your life, right? What if this happens, right? You'd go
No,
insane. You'd go
you would
insane.
go
You'd
insane.
go insane trying to cover every single bit. And I
Mm-hmm.
honestly can say, aside from right letting that person park his truck in front of my house, I have zero regrets, right? Like we never left the house, even on the phone, nothing. We must have said I love you 1,000 times a day. And I have no regrets. Like she knew she was loved, right?
Yeah.
And even her mom, had told me she was so grateful she had met me because those were the best years of her life. And she had a really rough growing up, right? Not the greatest parents and whatnot. And a lot of times I'm asked, aren't you angry with her? And for the longest,
If you ask that to her mom
no,
or
no, like other people like
oh,
who
okay.
knew her, they're like, aren't you mad
Okay.
at her for
Oh,
doing
they
that?
asked you.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're good. And for the longest time I said no, and I'm still not. I understand why they think I would be, right? Because and at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, relapsing's a choice and it's obviously a selfish one.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm not mad because I understand her, right? And I've
Mm-hmm.
done that same thing, couldn't even
Yeah.
tell you how many times, and the only difference was I didn't die.
Yeah.
I've done
Well,
the same
the
thing.
most people, the majority of people in recovery aren't in recovery on their first try.
No.
And so I think it's a little hypocritical for people
Right?
to be asking that
Thank you.
question anyways, because
It's like,
it's
haven't
like,
you relapsed before?
you made the same choice. You just got a different outcome.
Exactly.
Literally,
Thank
you
you.
guys are no fucking different.
That's what I said. I said, I'm no different than her. I've done that thousands of times. I just didn't die.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got clean, fentanyl was still becoming kind of a thing. And so
Yeah.
overdoses on heroin weren't as common, at least not in the sense of you die right away. With fentanyl, you don't stand a chance. So like my overdoses and stuff like that, I always came back from it. But that
Mm-hmm.
could have easily been me.
Yeah.
And it's like when you're in that state of mind, and in her, let me back up a little. In her defense, right, she had gone through chemo and radiation twice, two separate rounds. Once, first time with cervical cancer, right, and they got rid of it, and she didn't lose her hair, nothing like that. It was actually well, on my end, it wasn't horrible. I'm sure it sucked a lot more for her.
Mm-hmm.
But that rendered her completely sterile because the treatment, and so there went out the window any thought of us having a kid, which we wanted to do.
And that's grief in itself,
And that was
too.
grief in itself. That was like,
Mm-hmm.
and we had friends who were willing to surrogate, but it's not the same, of
Yeah.
course. So that really sucked, and we walked through that together. And then I was pretty adamant about doing a rescan, right? I'm like, hey, how about
Mm-hmm.
you do a scan to make sure it didn't metastasize and like jump somewhere else because it's common. And oh, we like to wait, a little bit longer. And after a month, I was like blown. She just goes with the flow, right? Like if
Mm-hmm.
I didn't show up and ask the questions at the appointments, she just smiled and said, okay. And I was like, no, I'm here to ask questions and make sure you're treating her right. And finally, after like 7 weeks, they finally did the rescan. Sure enough, it had metastasized to her lymph nodes, not as lymphoma, just as cervical cancer that had metastasized, right? And this time they put her through immunotherapy, which did take her hair, and she had really long, beautiful, natural red hair. Loved her. Her hair was probably the favorite thing about her, right? That she loved, and I loved too. And that killed her. And they
Wow.
put her on pain meds, which scared the shit out of me, of course, right? And I was like, fuck, man, that's both of our drugs of choice, and
Yeah.
and I knew I was fine, but I was like, man, do I need to hold on to the pills and like count them? And she managed them flawlessly. She took probably half of what was even prescribed. I don't even think I could have done that. And she got herself, after a while, she said, I'm not really in pain anymore. I don't need to be on these. And she got herself off of them. And
Good
I
for
think,
her.
right? Good for her.
Yeah.
And I think it planted a seed though,
That,
because,
like, maybe.
yeah, maybe I have a little
Maybe
more
I can
control.
still handle
Exactly.
it.
And
Maybe I
she,
can just do it one day a
just once
week.
in a while,
Yeah.
just a little hit here and there. And exactly. And I think she always kind of believed maybe one day, we'd be like normal people and could like smoke some bud or like drink some beer. And
Mm-hmm.
and I always would tell her, I don't think so. Like I
And
was
you're like, I don't
homeless.
know if I want to really gamble it.
Yeah, that's a big risk. And I am a
Yeah.
gambling man. I love gambling to
Mm-hmm.
to a fault. And that's not one gamble I would take though, because I've learned my lesson. I'm a chronic relapser, and so is she. And I used to explain to her, people don't typically live in tents in downtown and smoke drugs off aluminum foil if they're not addicts. So
Nope.
I don't, right? Let's be,
It's not a normal people
it's not a
activity.
normal people activity. We're not
No.
talking about like smoking weed or drinking or even like Coke once in a while.
Like doing a line in the bathroom when everybody's partying. Like
That's
that is a
different.
normal person
Yeah,
activity,
I know
I
lots of
would
normal
say.
people who do
But
that.
like it's when you end up downtown
Yep. Yeah.
on the
Right.
street
Yeah.
doing other things that you're
Despite
like,
the negative consequences, you
yeah.
can't stop, which means you're probably an addict. But
Yep.
that's a common theme with us. Is as time goes on, it's real easy to forget what it was like, and then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe I was blowing it out of proportion. And I think that's the point she had reached. And then that combined with getting herself off of the pain meds, I think
That
it
wasn't
planted a
just
seed.
enough.
And then
Yeah.
it's like when the opportunity came, it was like, I can take a hit, I'll be fine. And that's just not how it is for anybody.
No.
That's just it's an unfair disease these days. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
gets the chance to like relapse and like kind of fuck their life up for a while and then get clean or go to rehab. That's just not how it is anymore.
No.
I just saw an article yesterday about another new drug now that's in the fentanyl.
San Francisco?
Yep.
Yeah.
You saw it?
I
I
did.
can't propyl chlor, I can't even pronounce it.
Mm-hmm.
But fentanyl test strips won't even detect it.
Yep.
And it's just pretty much instant, and Narcan is ineffective.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, it's an unfair. I always say these are great times to not be using and really bad times to be using.
Absolutely.
Right. And so, yeah, obviously extremely unexpected. And so in her defense, she went through quite a bit. And so I can totally understand why at that point you'd want just anything to take you out of your own head and make you feel better,
Mhm.
and at least for addicts, and I imagine for a lot of normal people too, drugs and alcohol are a great way to do that, right? It disassociates you.
Yeah.
And I don't think so. My mom asked me, do you think she tried to kill herself? I said, no, I definitely don't think that. I think she just wanted to feel different
Yeah.
and just wanted something to look forward to. And
Yeah.
and she had no idea that's how it would end.
I mean,
And
arguably, you could say that like that choice she made was like a questionable grief decision.
oh,
Do you know what
100%.
I mean?
100%.
Like she was experiencing her own grief at that time, of grief of herself, the
Yep.
grief of her future, grief of like the family that could have been.
Yep.
And
and
I can only imagine how fucking heavy that could be.
Yep.
And you know what I mean? And that's
Yep. Her hair was like as long as yours, and I think at this time it was probably like maybe an inch. And she was so insecure about it, and I was like, I think it looks great. Like I always just told
I-
her, you look great no matter what. Bald doesn't matter, you look great.
I
But
couldn't fucking imagine.
but
I
you're
would
right.
if I was in that position, I would be so fucking depressed.
right? And
Yeah,
she was,
100%. Yep.
and she totally was, and there's nothing anybody can tell you. You know,
No,
it's
like
nice to hear it, but at the end of the
it
day,
doesn't.
it's your feelings that you need
Yeah.
to validate your own feelings, and she
Yeah.
was unable to, of course. And so, yeah, when it happened, you know, when my mom said, "Oh, she's on the ground," right? So I raced over there. I was only 5 minutes away. Called 911. Me and a sheriff pulled in at the same time. But as soon as you've been without oxygen that long, it's like your chances of coming
Mhm.
back are so slim, right? So Narcan like a gazillion times, of course, and nothing worked, and they worked on her forever, and I was watching, you know, the heartbeat machine, and
Mhm.
I had this. I never understood because I'm used to like Hollywood movies, you know, somebody's like flatlined and they shock them and the
Yeah.
heartbeat, that's not how that
That's not
works.
how it works,
No,
no.
there needs to be a heartbeat. So when
Yeah.
it was flat, I was thinking every time like, oh, there's gonna boop, it'll come back. My sponsor's a nurse and he explained that is not how that
That's
works.
not
Like all
real.
it does is it gets it back into rhythm. It doesn't just
Yeah.
restart a flatline. And so I had no
Yeah.
idea. So and I'm one of those people who can hold on to the smallest sliver of hope. I'm naturally really optimistic, right? And so until somebody tells me like it's a wrap, you know,
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, it's
You're
gonna,
like, but this, but this, but
yeah, right,
this.
but this could still happen and
Yeah.
that could still happen, you know. And so I'm holding on to a sliver of hope. And when they took her away in the ambulance, I'm like, it's cool, they'll get her back, you know. There's no way anything this horrible could ever happen. There's just no way, right? Like I've been through some pretty bad shit in my life, but there's no way something this bad could ever happen. It's just in my
Mhm.
head. It was completely impossible. It's either a nightmare or whatever. You know, it's just a scare. And I should have known when I got to the hospital. Not my favorite hospital, but it was the closest one. And they're usually not very friendly when you walk into this place. It was Grossmont.
Grossmont?
You already know.
Yeah.
You already know. Yep,
I
you
was
already
like,
know.
I'm pretty sure I know which
Yeah,
hospital you're
and
talking about.
they're a little stereotypical, judgmental
Yeah,
towards
no,
addicts. They get a lot
they
of homeless
are.
and stuff.
They
You
do.
know, they get in their defense, they get a lot of rough cases. And so when I walked in, they were just like smiles and so nice and oh, rush me right back and no waiting room. And I should have known like this is different. And I think I probably knew. You know, I probably knew when I was sitting in that room. It's that room that they put families in when they give them the shitty news.
Yep.
And but again, I'm holding on to like any, you know, nobody's told me yet, so I'm still thinking.
Yeah.
And then right when the doctor walked in, he had another doctor with him, and he didn't even have to say anything. I just saw the look. I saw the look in his face, and I was like, "Fuck." And I don't think I've ever cried that hard in my entire life, right? And I
Yeah.
watched my grandma raised me till I was about 13, and my mom was she worked a lot, and so my grandma was like my mom for the first 13 years of
Mhm.
my life, and she unexpectedly died also through a surgery that went kind of south, and I watched them pull life support off of her, and I thought that was the worst thing I'd ever go through. And you know, no disrespect to my grandma, but that didn't even come close, right? And it's
Yeah.
but it's different, like we said.
It's
It's
different.
a different style of grief,
Right.
right? And
It's
so
different.
for the longest, it was like, fuck, man, grocery stores, Costco, gas stations, my own vehicle because I drove us everywhere,
Everything.
my bedroom, right? Like all the furniture in the house we had designed and picked out together. I
Yeah.
mean, literally, when you spend that much time with somebody, every single aspect of your life is
Because your life's intertwined.
your life's
That's the
intertwined.
thing with like with partners.
Yep.
Like you like it's like the unification of souls.
Yes.
You know what I
We
mean?
used to
Like
say we're soulmates. I never believed in soulmates until I met her, and I was like, we're
yeah.
fucking
And so it's like
soulmates.
you literally intertwine your whole life together. So then like everything is a reminder. Like I remember for me, like I was up in North County, but
Mhm.
we had lived down here and then like back home in Minnesota. And when I first came back down here, we didn't even live in North Park,
Mhm.
but I remember that was the first place I came in San Diego, and just going to North Park, I literally had a fucking panic attack, and
Of
I was like, I
course.
can't be
Nope.
anywhere. And it
Nope.
took me a long time to get back into San Diego. Just
Yep.
like
Because
I just
every single
couldn't
thing.
drive on
Yep.
this freeway,
It just
couldn't take this exit.
it doesn't feel right.
7-Eleven,
Yep.
this like just stupid shit.
Things you never thought would have any importance. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
oh, that one time we picked out a bag of Funyuns in this aisle. Like the stupidest things,
Stupidest
right?
things.
That would normally have zero importance,
Mhm.
all of a sudden are like the most treasured fucking memories, right?
Mhm.
And I'm somebody with a horrible memory to begin with, but thank God I haven't forgotten anything, right? For
Yeah.
our relationship. And her and I had both been through a lot of toxic and shitty relationships as we do, right?
Yep.
And then when we found each other, It was like the first time we met through a dating app, first of all, which I did not even believe in. She already knew who I was through the rooms of recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like a one in a billion chance, right? And she came over. I was still managing a sober living at this time, and I hid her in my room and didn't tell the owners. But it was like
Solid.
yeah, right, solid. The first time she came over, she never left, and we spent every day together, and it was like being with your best friend. It was like if I could pick my best guy friend, right, and
Mm-hmm.
make him a woman, that's what it was like. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And it was like we used to trip out all the time. Like we would be like afraid of how healthy the relationship was. We
Yeah.
were like, this is concerning.
You're
Like
like,
we
this
don't
feels
argue. This
weird.
feels weird because we're
Mm-hmm.
used to toxicity
Yeah.
and chaos. And it was like something's got to be wrong here because we are just like too healthy, and, you know.
Yeah.
And over time we grew to accept it. And you know, I like to think there's a reason for everything, and that's a hard thing to say, you know, in times like this, because like, you know, and I'm sure people that are listening are like, fuck that, there can't be a good reason, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And maybe one day I'll find out, and it turns out there was.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows, right? Um, but I have to believe that there was some kind of a good reason for this. There has to be. Maybe it's so that you know I end up being able to raise a child one day or something like that. You know, who
Mm-hmm.
knows? Or maybe it's that, and I try to look at things in a selfless way, which is really hard, right? In a situation like this, you know, for the longest I said it's okay to be selfish, like pretty much fuck everybody. Like I'm turning off my phone. It's about Nick time right now,
You're
but
allowed to do that.
right,
And you
I,
can continue to do that
right.
throughout time. Don't forget.
Nobody
Don't
can
forget about
judge
that
us on
part.
that. Yeah, and sometimes I do forget that, right? It's okay to just you know kind of
Uh-huh.
f everybody else. This is about me, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I wonder maybe her story will end up saving countless others, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to say because, and this is selfish as fuck to say, but like, she's more important to me than any of those people, you know, that I
No,
don't
no.
know. But I know in the big scheme of things, you can't compare one life to many more.
Yeah.
And
No.
I understand that. And so the thing that I've tried to do is share her story and you know, especially because I run sober livings and I have a lot of guys who are fentanyl addicts and try
Mm-hmm.
to explain to them like, dude, that one more time will probably be the last. Like it's just not worth
Yeah.
the fucking gamble. And these little intrusive thoughts that you get in your recovery where you
Mm-hmm.
think, "Oh, I got this," or like, "Oh, just one more," or "I'll just do it on a weekend." That's just not how it works. And so, you know, it's hard again, it's hard to think that any positive could be taken from it, but I have to, right? I have
Yeah.
to make something positive out of this or else it's like, fuck, man, it's all negative and I can't let that happen. And I heard somebody say the only thing it's like letting somebody die twice when you let their memory be forgotten. I
Mm-hmm.
heard that and I was like, that is the truest shit I've ever heard,
Yeah,
right?
so that's that reminds me. So me and Erica did a chapter on that topic.
Mhm.
It was just worded a little differently, and it's that every person has two deaths. The
Yes.
first one is when they die, and the second one is the last time somebody says their name.
Yep.
Um,
100%.
yeah,
Yep.
100%.
And you
Like,
can't let them be forgotten. You can't.
no,
And whether it's a you know an over a drug related death or not, it doesn't matter. Everybody has a story that needs to be told, you
yeah,
know, and their
absolutely.
memory has to be preserved, right?
Yeah.
And I try not to bask in it and mope, right? I try to stay pretty positive. And I have my moments, right? People are like, "Oh man, you're always so positive. Like, how are you coping with this so well?" And I said, "Don't let the outside fool you, man.
Yeah.
Like, I have my moments where I just close my door at night and I cry to myself,
There's a
or
lot that you don't see.
exactly. There's a lot you don't see, and I talk out loud to her all the time, and I fully
Mm-hmm.
believe she can hear me. And like you know, I put on a good you know face in front of people when I need to, and I'm not a big person. I'm not big on grieving in front of others. Never have been. It's uncomfortable for
It's
me,
super uncomfortable.
isn't it? You
Yeah.
know, and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's just uncomfortable in general, and then
Right.
when you like add other people to the mix too,
Yep.
it's very
And
uncomfortable.
I think when it first happened, I was really confused because it felt like people expected me to cry in front of them, right? And I'm sure you can relate to this. I almost felt guilty when I didn't. Like I was doing something wrong. And I've learned to accept, first of all, nobody can judge you on how you grieve. Like
Mm-hmm.
if
And
anybody
if they
does
do,
that,
fuck
fuck them.
them.
Yep, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who does that, fuck them. They probably don't understand. However you grieve is however you grieve, right? And but I felt weird in the beginning. Like, man, should I be acting more sad in front of other people? And then I was like, fuck that.
Yeah.
I have my moments, you know what I mean? I do what
Yeah.
I got to do to get through my day,
Your
and then
journey is your own.
exactly, your journey is your own.
And
Thank
it's
you.
not going to be like anybody else's.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's
Yep.
just what it is. And, you know, we can come together and like share with others who have been through things that are similar, but still understand that, like, yes, we share very similar paths,
Yep.
but there's also so very different,
Yep. 100%. And
So,
I know there's people who don't have a belief, right, in afterlife.
mm-hmm.
And I'm sure they have their own way of processing
Yeah.
things, right? And I respect that fully. I don't this is just my opinion, but until I die, I can't confirm or deny really what's going to happen to me or anybody for that matter. That's just my opinion, right?
Yeah. No, I agree.
But I have my own beliefs,
Yeah.
and you know, when I hear people say, you know, fuck, I'll never see them again. Uh-uh.
I don't believe
It's
that.
like a long vacation. That's how I
Mm-hmm.
look at it. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
long vacation, whether it's a 70-year vacation, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
one day I firmly believe that I will see her again. And that's really the main way that I cope through things. Every time it gets really
Yeah.
bad, I'm like, no, it's cool. I'll see her again. And she probably won't have aged a day. You know, she'll be the same age forever, 39. You know what I mean? And I'll be way older and I'll be like score, you know?
And then when you meet again, you can talk shit about it. You can be like,
Exactly.
must be nice for you.
Yeah, yeah, must be nice. Still 39, yeah, huh? Yeah, you know what I mean? And I'll probably be like, you know, fuck you for what you did, but nice to see you again, you know?
Right on.
And we had that kind of a friendship, right? It was always sarcasm and joking, and I have no doubt that one day I'll be able to experience that again, and I just have to be patient, you know,
Yeah.
and just wait my turn,
Yeah.
and that's how it is. And it sucks, of course. If I could change that, I would, but again, that's me wanting to be selfish for me.
Mm-hmm.
I firmly believe that she's probably super happy where she is right now, and she probably looks at it the same way. You know, I'll see him again, and I can wait,
Yeah.
and it's worth the wait. And the same thing for you. You know, I think you probably agree.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you know, to get back to some questionable decisions. Thank God I'm in recovery because I would probably have a hard time admitting some of this shit. Fuck.
How many times in my head where I'm like, thank God I'm like sober.
Yeah.
Like if
Oh
this
yeah.
person knew me 5 years ago, I'm like,
Different person.
I don't have the fuse anymore. It's like because of the grief.
Yep.
Because I'm like, I just don't tolerate shit now. So I'm like,
Yeah.
so anyway,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, yeah. No,
Go.
I'm the same way. Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't have recognized me, you know, a little over 6.5 years ago. Different person entirely. And thank God this didn't happen then because I probably would have just done the same thing she did. And I'll be honest, you know, full transparency, that absolutely crossed my mind. Right. When
Mm-hmm.
I got the news, um, my mom rode with me to the hospital and my sponsor, I let him know what happened. I said, hey man, you know, Janae OD'd. And he said, where are you? And I said, I'm at the hospital, but don't come here. I don't want you here. And he said, okay. And then showed up 10 minutes later because he's smart and he knows me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he's like, if he's going to make a shitty decision, this is probably the time
This
he's
is when
going to
it's
do
gonna
it.
happen.
And him and one of my house managers, who is also one of my best friends, Stan, they both showed up and they were there when we got the news. And I'd be a liar if I said the thought of using didn't cross my mind. Hell yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it did. You know, and part of it was like, I just don't want to feel this.
Yep.
And the other part of it was like, man, I don't really know if life is worth living anymore
Yeah, at that
without
point
her.
you're like, I feel like this might be actually better.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Yeah.
I was like, you know, and this is the shitty thing, you know, good in a way, but also shitty is I knew it would probably be painless if I did it the same way,
Yeah.
you know. But the good thing is I know she didn't suffer one bit, you
Yeah.
know, and, you know, she didn't feel shit, you know, as
Yeah.
far the last thing she remembered was taking a hit and then that's it.
Yep.
And so thank God it didn't happen through like chemo and radiation or something horrible like that.
Or like
That would
just
have
like
sucked.
terrifying, fucked up shit that happens
I
in the world
I
where it's like
yep.
that that shit hurt.
Nobody should
Even
die
for
in
like a
fear.
split second.
Yep.
But like, yeah, like
That
the
shouldn't be
fear,
your last. No,
yeah.
that should not be anybody's last thought. And I know it is for a lot of
I
people.
forget to think about that piece
Yeah.
with Ken.
Yep.
So thanks for
Yep. It's
Thanks
the
for
most. It's
bringing
the
that
most. I've talked to people
down.
who have died and crossed over and literally come back from that same way, and they said you have no idea it's even
Yeah.
happening. It is literally the most peaceful. You just think you're going to sleep, and that's it. And so you know, and I'm sorry for anybody who lost somebody who didn't go that way.
Yeah.
That sucks, and it doesn't. And I really feel for those people because that's a shitty memory, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so in a way, I feel kind of blessed that I know she at least didn't suffer, right?
Mhm. Like we're always gonna pull the most positives
Of course, we
that we
try.
can pull
Yep,
out of
yep.
it, you know.
Of course, any little anything, I'll find it. I
Yep.
will find it. Yeah, but best believe I'll find it. It's if it's there, I'll get it. And so yeah, and so during our relationship, right, um, you know, neither of us knew success or wealth or even like a home of our own, right? And we built
Mhm.
all that together. And she was with me when I opened my first house and the second and the third and all that stuff, right? And then I don't know what year this was, probably year 2 or 3, probably year 3 of our relationship. I was going to the casino just like here and there with my buddies, no big deal, right? Which is definitely not suggested for people like us. Pretty dangerous
Mm-hmm.
place, and I believe that casinos absolutely prey on addicts and alcoholics.
Absolutely.
Yep, we are their number one customers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my current sponsor is pretty well versed, and he has a master's and he's in a PhD program, and he knows psychology, and he's like, let me tell you, those lights on those damn slot machines, and when you win, it triggers the same chemical responses in your brain that drugs do,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't think it's the same, but it is the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so one night I was there, and I won a shitload of money, and
Mm-hmm.
wasn't even trying. I was just trying to have a good time, and I won a shitload of money, and that started it. Right, it like lit that fire, and I always said this: everybody hates your gambling until you win a shitload of money, and then they're like, "Good for you," But
Yeah.
when you're losing, they're all judgmental, right?
Yes.
And she wasn't thrilled I was going. She was not a fan of the casino. But when I came home with a bunch of money, she was like, "Fuck yeah, this is great." And I used to give her shit about that. Yeah, you hate it when I lose, but you love it when I win. And but that started one hell of an addiction, let me tell you. And
Yeah.
like a 7 day a week, I got through my days, but every night I was there, and
Damn.
I let her sleep alone in our bed without me there because I was there till 4 o'clock in the fucking morning. And I fucked off a lot of money, right? I won a lot of money, but I lost way more for sure. And at the end, she said, "You need to ban yourself and self-exclude yourself from these casinos." And she said, "It's them or me." And that was the first time she had ever threatened anything even remotely close to that in our relationship. And I did. I self-excluded myself from all of them. And most of them were I signed like a 1 year, right? Because I didn't have the balls to sign a lifetime. the thought of
Yeah, you're
never
like,
going back. Yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah. What if she leaves
You're
me
like,
one
I'll
day?
sign again in a year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll sign. Yeah, that's what I told her. I'll
Yeah.
just re-sign it in a year. But in my head, I'm like, what if she leaves me and then I can never go there for my coping mechanism? It's just the addict in me,
Yeah.
right? And I didn't even recognize how sick the addiction was. I just knew that I liked going way too much.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I stayed abstinent from it for a long time. And then this is one of those questionable decisions I made right shortly after she died. And I told my mom, I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go to Verona," and she said, "You really shouldn't do that." And I said, "Probably not, but this is where the manipulation came in, right?" I was like, "Well, if it's like that, or me like drinking or getting loaded, this is obviously
This
the
is the.
much better alternative."
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it wasn't a smart choice, but at the time, and I don't think I would have drank or gotten loaded. Honestly, it was a manipulation thing. But at the time, it was the mental checkout
You
that I
needed the
needed.
escape.
I needed the escape, and
And
that's what it
to
was for
be
me.
honest, it wasn't drugs or alcohol.
It wasn't.
So at that point, when you're in your fucking grief, you're like, I don't really give a fuck
Yeah,
what
I don't
any of
really
you have
care.
to say
Yep.
because I need to escape reality right now.
Yep.
And I'm not a normal person, so I can't do it like how
100%.
other people do it.
Yep.
So this
And
is what
I
I'm gonna do.
meditate, and but even meditating became like impossible.
Oh,
Even
God.
I couldn't get
Yeah.
into the right brainwaves. I couldn't do it. It was all impossible. And it was like that was the one thing that I knew just worked on my brain real well. And so
Mhm.
I went, and then I went, and then I went, and I told my mom it won't be like it was before. I won't go every day, and I didn't for a while. But then little by little, it starts becoming more and more. And then
Mhm.
my little mental checkout eventually grew back into an addiction. And then I did sign a lifetime
Oh
self-exclusion.
shit, you did?
I did. Because
Good for
yep,
you.
and yep, I had to, and I was like, man, she's probably shaking her head at me right now.
Oh,
Wherever
she's
she is,
probably
she's
pissed. She's like, this
this
motherfucker.
motherfucker.
But
He,
you know
yeah.
what? Maybe she'd be like,
Maybe she understood.
"What?
Could have been worse. He could have made a worse choice.
This is true."
Right? Could have made worse choices, and it was quite. It was more than questionable. It was a bad choice, right? But again, grief is like a confusing process.
Yeah.
And
It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad choice, though, right?
no,
Like, is
yeah.
it not the healthiest choice? Absolutely not.
course
But
not.
like, just because choices aren't the healthiest or the best choices for us, it doesn't automatically make them bad.
That's a good
Because
point.
sometimes we're just going through some shit. And like the level of pain that we're in, like, and what normal people would choose, you know what I mean?
The
Like,
ends justify the means.
it does. And it
100%.
has to match, or
Yep.
it's not going to fucking balance out. Does that make sense what I'm trying to
It
say?
does. Yep.
Right? So, like,
Nothing else would have worked.
with like questionable group decisions like these, like the casino, things like that, I try to conceive a child with somebody who is on drugs.
Yeah,
Okay.
see? Yep.
That's
We're trying to fill a void with other things,
Yes,
and
but I
probably
don't-
unsuccessfully.
I don't look at it like it was a bad choice.
No, it was what
That
you
was
needed to do.
just a part of the fucking journey,
Yep.
and that is what I needed at that time,
Yep.
and I don't look back at it and go like, "What the fuck?" Or like, and I don't care if people judge me about it, you know
Fuck
what
'em.
I mean?
Not
They're
their
like,
place.
"Wait, you were doing what right after your husband died?" It's like, listen, I was like, "I need a baby, and this person's on drugs, they'll do it."
Yep.
But
Bingo. Problem
bingo.
solved. Yep.
I'm like,
This will fix it
this
all.
will
Yep.
fix it
Yep.
all. You know what I mean? And like looking back on it, I'm like, not the best, but like it's not a bad decision.
And you could have made way worse.
It's that exactly.
Way worse.
I stayed clean through that
Yep.
shit.
You're alive and you didn't relapse.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So it's not bad. It's just
Agreed.
a part of the journey.
Yep.
And unless you have been on this journey, you just won't get it.
It's impossible to understand. I thought, like I said, I thought I understood. A lot of my friends, right? And I work with Luis from Fuck Fentanyl.
Mhm.
And I have a stack of photos like this big in the back of my truck of people who have died, and many of them are spouses and stuff like that. And I always thought, God, that's just got to be horrible. But it never comes close to when you experience it. Like
Mhm.
I totally thought, and I'm really, really, I'm like an empath, right? I can really put myself in somebody's shoes, but nothing prepared me for this, right?
Nothing can.
Yeah, nothing
Yeah.
can, right? And so, I pray that nobody ever in the world has to experience it, right? Because I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. If I even had an enemy, I wouldn't wish it on them. But I know it will happen to more people,
Mhm.
and until I hope this podcast really helps somebody prepare for that if they haven't
Mhm.
experienced it yet and they're listening. Um, you know, like you said, there's no bad decisions as long as you don't take your life and you don't do some crazy drugs or whatever. If that's what gets you through it, that's
Yeah.
what gets you
If you're
through
not
it.
hurting yourself, you're not
Yes,
hurting other people, like
absolutely.
do what you got to
Do
do.
what you got to do. And then I thought, like when I was hooking up with that girl, a couple months after Janae died. um, I thought like, okay, I'm good, and then when that stopped, it was like, holy shit, it's a whole different type of grief.
Mhm.
And then I went through that for a little while, and then another type, and then it's like I would have months, or maybe a month, where I was like, okay, I think it's the end now. Like I think I made it through the thick of it, and I'm doing great. And then like 2 weeks later, just bam, and
Mhm.
it's like, what the fuck is going on? Why is this, and my sponsor, he, for whatever reason, he must have lost somebody close to him because he understands this quite well. And he's like, dude, there is no like set end date
No.
when this will stop. He's like,
Yeah.
it may soften and it may get a little bit easier, but it will never stop.
Yeah.
And it's like a roller coaster.
Yep. Just ebbs
you
and
know?
flows,
It
and
ebbs
then
and
all of a
flows.
sudden it's like,
Yeah.
like I had a panic attack like 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
And it had been a long time since that happened. It was like 2 days before Ken's birthday,
Mm.
and it just hit me, and it had been a minute since it had been like that heavy, and I was like literally crying like a fucking
Yep.
child in
Yep.
my room, like on the fucking. It was. I don't know. I think there was this little tiny piece of me that was like, it was 2 days before his birthday, and I was like,
Oh, that played a part.
nothing happened yet. I'm like, I'm doing okay. And so I think there was this little piece in my head that was like, maybe we're not going to freak out this time. And that's not,
This is the year.
this must be it. And then that's not what happened at
Yeah.
all. And then when it happened, it was like, it put me right back into, I felt like how I felt at the beginning.
Yep.
And that was really fucking hard. And I was just like, fuck. Like I find myself as like the years go on, I'm like, sick. We're still doing this.
Yeah. We're still doing
it.
Still in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then that's when you're just like, you still got to reach out for support and give yourself
You do.
grace.
Yep. For the longest, I just isolated, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want to confide in anybody. I didn't want anyone's fucking advice, right? Even if they had experience, I didn't want their advice. I wanted to do it Nick's way. And like we said, that's what it took.
You kind of have to, because nobody can do it for you.
No, 100%. Now it's different, right? Now I reach out, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm like, hey, what do you think I should do right now? Because I've learned that I make questionable choices in moments of grief, right? My brain is not thinking the way it normally does. And I remember when her birthday was October 4th. And I remember when October 4th came around, and she would have been 40. And she always said, I do not want to be 40.
Yeah.
And
I
was like,
remember we talked about this before,
like,
yeah.
Bitch, you got it. You got what you wanted. You avoided it. You are forever 39. And it's like a running joke my mom and I have now. Like that motherfucker. She
did
did
that
it.
shit.
She avoided 40. And so, my mom took it not harder than I did, but totally different, right? And my mom, I'm an only child. My mom never had a daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and Janae's mom wasn't the greatest for many years, and so Janae called my mom,
Yeah.
right? And my mom called her daughter, and I don't think my mom had ever seen a body before in her life, especially somebody that close to her,
Yeah.
and she just completely shut down, and she used to say to me like, "Why haven't I cried? What's wrong with me?" I said, "There's nothing wrong with you." I said, "You are processing
Probably
this
in
in your own."
shock.
Yep, and that's what it was. She was in shock for
It's
like
like
months.
it's a coping mechanism that your brain does to stop you from like
Really?
shutting the fuck down.
Yeah.
Like I mean,
Yep.
it's the fight or flight thing.
Yep.
Like when you don't cry from grief and you're like, why am I not crying? It's like it's literally because it's so intense that your brain is like, we're not going to do anything
Zero emotions.
because we can't.
Yep.
Like you will literally shut the fuck down.
Yep. If you start, you'll
we
never
start.
stop.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. It's like
And I tried telling her
it's
that.
fucked.
Yep. And I was like, this is your process. Whatever your this is, and a lot of people lost her, right? But my mom and I definitely took it the hardest. And her mom had a very different reaction, and some people were really judgmental when I told them how she reacted. And I said, "Fuck you, man. You don't know what that's like, right? She lost a daughter, and she's probably living with a lot of guilt
Yeah.
on how she was a parent for many years. And so when Janae was 17, she had a daughter, and her mom was not in a good place mentally. And I haven't heard the mom's side of the story, but she's pretty much admitted fault that she called CPS and like made up a story, and Janae lost that kid. And thank God for the kid in a way, because Janae was partying and she didn't get sober for many years after that. And that girl is now 21, and I have a relationship with her, and her name's Jade, and she's a great kid, spitting image of Janae. I mean, it looks like Janae from 20 years ago. It's wild. Same red hair, freckles, all that shit. And so she hated her mom for a really long time and wouldn't talk to her. And when we got together, I said, I really think you should work on the forgiveness and, developing that relationship with your mom. I know you have nothing to apologize for. Don't get me wrong. I don't think you should do it for that reason. I think you should do it because when the day comes that she's no longer here, you don't want any regrets, right? You owe her nothing. And if you choose to never speak to her again, I'll support you, right? But I think you should, not for her, for you. And she did. And they ended up speaking on the phone every day. And her mom has changed a lot, and she became really loving and caring, and I'm so glad that I pushed her to do that.
Yeah.
Because I never thought it would be that she would go before her mom, right? So my little, nudging her to have that relationship was really for her benefit, so that when her mom passed, because her mom's about my mom's age, when her mom passed, Janae wouldn't have any guilt about not speaking to her, and it ended up having the opposite effect. Her mom now can at least say, I had a relationship with her before my daughter passed.
Yeah.
And no parent should ever have to bury their kid.
No.
And that's a fucked up thing. And so when it happened, I reached out to her mom and I said, hey, I got her cremated, and I got a bunch of other little urns, right? And they all match. And she said, I don't want her ashes. And she said, I have enough memories I don't want anymore. And when I told somebody that, they said, God, what a bitch. And I said, fuck you, man. You don't know her process. And
just gotta let her do it in her own way.
Exactly. And you know what I did? I kept the little urn for her mom. It's still in my office. And if in 10 years she decides she wants it, I'll have it for her.
Yep.
And if not, that's fine too.
Yep.
Because just like I couldn't understand what it was like to lose a partner, I can't imagine what it's like to lose a kid.
Yeah, like literally, and like, I don't know, I feel like with a kid too, especially like for a mom and a daughter, it's like you grew that human inside of your body. Different. It like, I can't even imagine. So.
I have no kids, and I can't imagine what that would be like. And so, just like I thought I could understand, I couldn't. And until, God forbid, I hope that day never comes, right? But I've understood now that I'll never be able to relate unless I've been through it. And even if you've been through it, you still really can't relate because everybody's relationship is unique. Different. You know what I mean? And so it's unique.
It's like the darkness and beautifulness of the human experience.
Exactly. Like I understand you, right? And what happened with Ken, but we can't say that it's the same because your relationship with Ken was different than Janae and I, And so I wish I could, because if I could understand everybody, I could probably help more people that way, but that's just not reality. It's different for each of us.
Yeah.
And in a way that's kind of beautiful, right? It's like our own experience is so unique that no matter how much I can understand, it'll never be exactly the same as
Yeah.
somebody else's. And it kind of makes it special in a way. I wouldn't want it to be identical to
No,
anyone else's. I'm
because what you
grateful.
had was special.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and it's no more special or less special than anyone else's.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you said, it's not better or worse. It's just
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I made some questionable decisions, right? And like I started thinking about I'm going to start modifying my cars, and I'm going to put bigger tires on my truck, and blowing money on this and
Mm-hmm.
blowing money on that, and all of it was just to fill a void with material
Yeah.
shit. But again, I didn't get high and I didn't off myself. So I don't care what I did. If it got me through it, it got me
Yeah.
through it.
You're still sitting here today.
And I'm still sitting here today.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm grateful for that. And so, yeah, I definitely made some. I'm glad that you pointed that out, because I've been telling myself they were bad decisions, and they weren't. They were questionable.
They're
Not good or
questionable,
bad.
and
They just are.
they happened. And so that's why I love this segment so much, because I think it's a little sector of grief that gets swept under the rug because people already feel guilt and shame about these
Mm-hmm.
decisions. And so then they don't want to talk about
Yep.
them. And so it's just not a good situation at all. So when I first came up with the idea for this segment, I was like, yeah,
It's a
like,
great
let's
topic.
talk about some fucked up shit.
Because I'm pretty sure everybody can
Everybody
relate
does
to
it.
that.
Now, whether you're
Right.
ready to talk about it or not, like, you know.
Exactly.
So,
Yep.
so thank you.
I didn't talk about it for the longest,
Mhm.
and then I realized that it was enhancing my shame and my guilt.
Mhm.
And as addicts, we naturally thrive in shame and guilt,
Mhm.
and it was bad. And then somebody said, "Man, why don't you just open up and talk about it, like at a meeting or
Yeah.
something?" And I did. And as soon as I did that, it was
It
like
releases it.
the power of the shame and guilt was gone.
Yeah.
And then it was like, man, maybe this will help somebody else not make
Yeah.
similar decisions.
Yeah.
Right? I almost
Yeah.
said mistakes, decisions.
This is
Right. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you for coming back on
Thank you.
and side questing and sharing these with
I'm great
us.
at ADHD. I'm great at side questing. Yeah.
For those of you, if you are just tuning in this week, make sure you go back to last week, and Nick is going to be sharing more in depth about his grief journey with his partner. So thank you so much for coming back
course.
on.
Thank you.
And we will see you guys next week. Thank you.